of the rich and famous accused of bribing their kids' way into college.
I don't think these parents thought they were ever going to get caught. It's clear that they kind of thought they were going to get away with it, and it's sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
The U.S. and Canada are the only countries allowing the Boeing 737 MAX 8 airplane to continue flying.
CNN is officially being sued for $275 million.
CNN's tagline is facts first, and what we believe their reporting was in this circumstance was lies first, cover-up second.
In some newly released transcripts, former FBI lawyer Lisa Page says the Justice Department told agents not to charge Hillary Clinton.
This just shows that there's a two-tier system, and Ms. Clinton was treated completely differently than what we ended up seeing President Trump being treated, and that's just wrong.
I appreciate the energy you showed. Save it a little longer. I may need it in a few weeks.
Varsity Blues is the name of the operation that caught a whole bunch of famous folks.
Here's the affidavit. Look at this. More than 200 pages of all of the people, the parents allegedly trying to bribe colleges.
Oh, man.
Fake photos to try to get their kids into college.
Right, to the best colleges. Actresses Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin, among 33 parents charged. Loughlin expected to turn herself in today. She's in Canada right now.
Meanwhile, Todd Pyro is here in the newsroom with the very latest on Operation Varsity Blues.
What a wild story, guys. Like Brian said, Loughlin expected to turn herself in the next few hours. Huffman, appearing in federal court Tuesday, released on bond. The Desperate Housewives star allegedly met with a witness who said he could control an SAT testing center and arrange for someone to proctor her daughter's test and correct it. As for Loughlin, she and her fashion designer husband, Massimo Giannulli, are accused of paying $500,000 in bribes for their daughters to be crew recruits at USC, even though they never rode before. Here's the Full House star talking about her daughter going to college.
I think I'm in complete denial.
Yeah?
I really am, because when I think about it too much, it will make me cry.
Really?
So I got to stop.
A total of 50 people, including 9 coaches and 1 high-ranking athletics administrator, indicted. Big-time schools targeted: Georgetown, Yale, Stanford, the University of Texas, USC, and UCLA. The man at the center, William Singer, pleading guilty to taking $25 million, using some for bribes and pocketing the rest.
Make no mistake, this is not a case where parents were acting in the best interests of their children. This is a case where they flaunted their wealth, sparing no expense, to cheat the system.
And get this, the feds adding the investigation continues. More people could be charged. Back to you.
All right, Todd, thank you very much, because I think it does go back to 2011, and apparently the feds got wind of this when they were doing another undercover operation, and then suddenly they're, wait a minute, people are essentially buying their way into colleges? I mean, let's face it. If you have ever tried to get your kids into a college, you know that you would do anything you could possibly do. But that involves, having them take the test again, or community service, or tutor, or doing a better job with their college essay. Who knew that for $15,000 to $75,000, this was possible?
And for every student who got in through this fraud, a genuinely talented one was denied. And the other thing that bothers me, do these kids, well, they know now, but did these kids know what their parents were doing? What a lesson to teach your kids. We'll lie, we'll take care of it. We have a lot of money, and we'll get you into the school that you want to get into.
If you're one-on-one with a proctor, and that proctor is helping you with your test, I assume the kid's read in. In other cases, they say the kid, according to one of the wiretaps, they talked about the kid not knowing, and Singer saying most of the kids don't know. But I find it fascinating. By the way, it's an ongoing investigation. I don't think there's any way it stops here. As Steve mentioned, 10 months ago, this investigation started when a whistleblower came forward and told the FBI about it, and then they really unwound the whole thing real quickly.
Subpoenas, search warrants, and wiretapping.
Yeah, I thought it was just interesting the way they use non-revenue sports to do it. So you're not putting a kid on a football team and basketball team like Varsity Blues in basketball. You're doing it on the sailing team. You're doing it on the water polo team. You're doing it in the case of Yale at the women's soccer team with a non-athlete, and you're photoshopping faces and bios and stories in. It's unbelievable.
One of the craziest stories was the fact that, and see, I don't think the kids knew what some of their parents were doing, because one of the kids, apparently, he was told by one of the admissions people, okay, you're coming here, you're a pole vaulter. He goes, I'm a pole vaulter? Are you kidding?
Right there, that's it. So they knew at that point.
Apparently, according to the affidavit that Ainsley's got, there was a fellow by the name of Mark Rydell. He's a Harvard graduate. Much of the academic cheating on the test was done by him. He, at the time, was the director of college entrance exam preparation at the IMG Academy down in Florida. And what he would do is he would take the SAT or the ACT in place of the kids, give them the answers they needed, or working with the proctor, they would change the answers so that they would get up to the right score. And apparently they would guarantee, if you're taking the ACT, we can guarantee you'll be something in the 30s. If you want a 36, that's perfect. Or if you're taking the SATs, we could get you up to 1,600 for $75,000.
In a school like Harvard, they have 7 or 8 people on a committee that decide. They read through all the applications and they decide together collectively if someone's going to get in. So that's the way maybe schools are going to have to change their system so that not one person makes the decision and is bribed.
Yeah, I actually did not know the system was like this, but man, it's going to bring new scrutiny to admission policies and maybe level the playing field for the first time. Listen, I think this is as irresponsible as a parent as leaving a toddler in a mall by themselves, because you are
or in
totally
an airport. Did you hear that story?
Yeah, that airport. But I'm just saying to tell a kid, to tell a kid you didn't have to study in high school, you don't really have to worry about getting into college because you got to get through to the best college. I'll take care of you. We'll find a way, and we'll put you in a place you don't belong, in a place you haven't earned. Meanwhile, Olivia, Lori Lofkin's daughter, this girl is already a force as an influencer on the internet. In fact, my kids knew about her ahead of time, and they said, well, look at what she posted after getting into school. Now we know what their mom and maybe their dad did to get him, which their dad did to get him into the school. Listen to what they posted.
I don't know how much of school I'm going to attend, but I'm going to go in and talk to my deans and everyone and hope that I can try and balance it all. But I do want the experience of like game days, partying. I don't really care about school, as you guys all know.
Okay. She wants to party, doesn't care about school.
Yeah, all right. So she appreciates the opportunity.
There's someone who probably didn't get accepted to USC. I think that's the school she goes to.
Yeah.
That would have loved to have the opportunity to be in those classrooms.
All right, more to come on that. Meanwhile, there was a document dumped by the Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee. The House sent out hundreds of pages, and we're learning more about perhaps the deep state at the Department of Justice and at the FBI. Because in this document dump, they admitted that the FBI was ordered, Lisa Page, remember her, the FBI attorney, she admitted the FBI was ordered by the Barack Obama Department of Justice not to consider charging Hillary Clinton for gross negligence in handling intelligence, which is classified. Remember, in an early draft of what James Comey was, he was accusing Hillary Clinton of being grossly negligent. Well, gross negligence can be punished with prison time, but they changed it to extremely careless. And Page testified that there was conversations between the Department of Justice and the FBI about how to get her off the hook, essentially.
Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee, they released transcripts, hundreds of pages of these transcripts from that hearing with the Judiciary Committee. And this is what one of them said, to your point, when she was ordered not to charge Hillary Clinton. She says, we had multiple conversations with the Justice Department about bringing a gross negligence charge. And that's, as I said, the advice that we got from the department was that they did not think that it was constitutionally vague and not sustainable. Then Congressman Ratliff says, when you say advice you got from the department, you're making it sound like it was the department that told you you're not going to charge gross negligence because we're the prosecutors and we're telling you we're not going to. And she says, that's correct.
Oh, my goodness.
And this from Congressman Collins, who actually was on the radio with me and says, in 45 minutes, I'll release more transcripts. If you like last week's, this is Lisa Page Day. So we found out Lisa Page is going to release all this, and it's, you talk about it's about 350 pages. Now, the big question for me was, what's about this insurance policy that we discussed in Andy's office? Andy McCabe doesn't seem to remember in his book tour what they discussed with an insurance policy as relates to the presidency of the United States. Now, if I'm to believe Lisa Lisa Page and what she says, and if I'm understanding the summary in which I read, it is essentially Lisa Page is saying Crossfire Hurricane was an investigation into a possible Russian infiltration into the Trump campaign. They say, being that we didn't think he was going to win, we could take our time. But in the event that you die because you're 40, before you're 40, we have an insurance policy where I guess it's an accelerated investigation into something that they admit in this copy and in this cross-examination they knew very little about.
The scary thing is just the fact that this essentially lays bare. It sounds like there was a deep state. We've heard about that for a while, but think about this. There's this FBI investigation looking into things, but it's the Department of Justice. It's Barack Obama's Department of Justice telling the FBI not to charge her, which, you know, the way the Department of Justice is who decides anyway. It's the FBI that just does the investigating.
Here's Doug Collins.
The president has been unfairly attacked from the moment he was elected in November 2016 on many fronts. And now we're beginning just to see the vast scope of what most of us knew, that Ms. Clinton was treated completely differently than what we ended up seeing President Trump being treated. And that's just wrong. This just shows that there's a two-tier system, and we're going to say we're going to get this out, and we're going to put it in ways that people can easily understand, not a large dump, but we're going to take it methodically as we go, as we get them cleared, and we're going to get them out to the American people.
The big question is, how high up did it go? And that is ultimately what everybody wants to know.
And with that mobile probe, John Roberts reporting yesterday, the word is it's coming out this week. He says, I don't necessarily believe it, but there's a lot of noise about it coming out.
Right.
So maybe we'll get some more answers.
I heard from down in Washington there's a possibility that as soon as Mr. Manafort is sentenced, it could be dropped right then.
Probably adding toner in his copier right now. Jillian did, and she has her scripts ready. Hey, Jillian.
I don't, nope, no scripts. Got
no
nothing.
Scripts? Oh, okay.
It's, you know what, it's all in my brain.
Thank you.
Let's start with this story. A construction worker falls to his death at Disney World overnight. Police say the man fell behind the France Pavilion at Disney's Epcot theme park in Florida, calling it an industrial accident. No one else was hurt. Extreme weather now. Look at that. Devastating tornadoes tear through New Mexico, damaging several homes and buildings. You can see the massive funnel ripping across a field. The system also sweeping across Texas, bringing damaging winds and heavy rain in El Paso. Southwest Airlines forced to cancel all flights out of Denver overnight as that storm now moves north. The Senate is gearing up to vote on blocking President Trump's national emergency declaration. The vote is scheduled for tomorrow. 4 Republicans are set to join 47 Democrats to pass the measure. Trump plans to veto it. Meanwhile, Republican Senator Mike Lee has a new proposal to limit future national emergency declarations. Well, social media lighting up over the way Senator Mitt Romney blows out candles on his Twinkie birthday cake. Watch this.
Look at this. It's never going to work, is it?
Yep, one at a time. People split on the bizarre technique on Twitter. Tony saying, quote, do you also eat Twinkies with a knife and fork? Catherine writing, a lot of people making fun of Mitt Romney for blowing out his candles this way, but everyone should do this during flu season.
I totally agree.
Think about this, you're blowing on a cake.
I know, but by the time you get to the last one, it's like melted wax all over the cake.
Listen, when you get older, it was a great idea when you were 16.
Right.
Hats off to whoever came up with the idea of a Twinkie cake. If you love Twinkies,
right.
Turn it into
fried
a
Twinkies.
I love sponge and I like cake. It's in perfect mix. CNN hit with a $275 million lawsuit by the Covington Catholic student. Remember this?
CNN's tagline is facts first, and what we believe their reporting was in this circumstance was lies first, cover-up second. His character has now been determined by the lies issued by CNN. CNN's tagline is facts first, and what we believe their reporting was in this circumstance was lies first, cover-up second, and facts not yet determined by that organization.
The attorney for the Covington Catholic student at the center of that Capitol Hill confrontation officially filing a $275 million lawsuit against CNN, accusing the network of vicious and direct attacks on Nicholas Sandmann.
All right, Joe Koch is a media reporter with The Hill and WOR radio talk show host. He joins us right now to weigh in. Hey, Joe, right now, what do you think the chances are that this moves forward at a good pace?
I think, Brian, it has a very good chance of moving forward. The number, 275 million, is almost irrelevant. This is about accountability, Brian. People want to see news organizations being held responsible if they knowingly push false information. And I have facts to back this up. Ipsos poll last year, 2018, found that nearly 3/4 of Americans, 72%, believe, quote, it should be easier to sue reporters who knowingly push false information. And look, CNN's a huge news organization. It's got 36 bureaus around the world, nearly 4,000 employees, has more resources than most. So it's hard to believe, for instance, that maybe they didn't have enough folks around to look for other videos that were available besides the one that was initially pushed by an anti-Trump organization that was heavily edited. And look, to Lynn Wood's point, the attorney that's involved here, you know, the desire to hold off to be first instead of accurate, to find the apples from the bananas, separate those, gather facts first, and look for the other videos that were out there. That's the thing here. I think what CNN's, or at least Lynn Wood's challenges is in regards to CNN or the Washington Post is, are there damages to Nicholas Sandmann? In other words, if he's in high school, is there a monetary aspect attached here? And if there isn't, then what are we talking about here? So it'll move forward, but you know, can you prove that he was damaged from a monetary perspective? Maybe future earnings, though, Brian, right? Or college prospects.
Colleges.
Maybe some colleges aren't going to want to allow him to go in.
Hey, Jed, the lawsuit claims that CNN elevated false, heinous accusations of racist conduct against Sandmann and failed to adhere to well-established journalistic standards and ethics. Do you think that these attorneys should continue with these lawsuits? Because first it was the Washington Post with $250 million. This is $275 million. The attorneys saying they're looking very closely at NBC, Associated Press, HBO because of Bill Maher, individuals like Kathy Griffin.
I think you absolutely go forward with these things and see what happens. But I have a feeling that given the public sentiment towards the media right now, at least in the court of public opinion, a lot of Americans, that 3/4 I just talked about, want to see these suits go forward and at least give it a shot.
Yep, put everything out there, lay it to bear. Joe Concha, thanks.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, good to see you.
All right, meanwhile, we have a growing list of countries grounding Boeing jets after the deadly Ethiopia crash, but the FAA will not. Is that the right move?
Plus, the video is pretty crazy. A man runs past firefighters into a burning home. Why would he do that? You got to see what happens next.
Quick headline now, breaking overnight. ISIS is facing a defeat as another 3,000 fighters surrender in Syria. Terrorists waving the white flag as U.S.-backed forces complete a final attack on the last ISIS stronghold in the war-torn nation. The question is, what do we do with these people? And a Georgia woman is charged and accused of supporting ISIS by helping spread kill lists targeting U.S. soldiers and members of the State Department. The Justice Department says Kim An recruited extremists and encouraged them to kill thousands of Americans. She faces up to 20 years in prison. You think so? Now, let's talk Boeing. Steve.
Thanks, Brian. Ethiopian Airlines chief executive saying this morning Boeing should ground all of its 737 MAX 8 jets until they're able to establish that they are absolutely safe to fly. This after the second deadly crash involving those planes in just 5 months that has killed 157 people. 8 of those in the last flight were Americans.
The list keeps growing of countries that are grounding their fleets of the Boeing 737 MAX planes, but the FAA still stands behind their decision that there is no issue to ground the aircraft here in the United States. This calls into question whether the FAA is doing enough. So joining us now is Kyle Bailey, aviation analyst and a pilot and former FAA safety team representative. Kyle, thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. So how many of these do we have here in America, and should we be worried if we're taking one of these planes?
Right now, Southwest has about 34. American Airlines has 24, and you're safe on Delta. They have none right now. The FAA does a very good job what they do, and they strictly look at data and the facts. And they're, as you know, the last major airline crash, large cabin passenger plane on U.S. soil, was shortly after September 11th. That's right. It's an impeccable safety record, with the exception of the Colgan crash, which was a smaller aircraft.
All right, Kyle, as I remember, the first 737 MAX 8 crash involved this new system that they put in it, MCAS, I think is the abbreviation for it. And what happens is, in the plane that crashed 5 months ago, the sensors were damaged, and so the plane didn't know where it was. So the computer was trying to drive the plane with bad equipment.
Yeah, and that final report actually isn't out yet, but it's looking like on this airplane, again, this is just speculation, it's very early. I think the communication between the sensors and the airspeed indicator, which is the pitot tube, and the angle of attack indicator, which basically tells you the climb angle when you're taking off, to prevent a stall. They're communicating. So if the backup system senses an imminent stall, which is the airplane literally will lose lift and part of it will fall out of the sky, a wing will drop and could crash, it will actually do what's called it will push the nose over to increase airspeed. So if that happened, these pilots could have been struggling to pull back on the controls, but you're very low and you have terrain below you.
What about the training that our pilots go through? If our pilots had a problem like that, would they be able to land the plane safely?
You know, here in the U.S., we have the best pilots, the training especially. Pilots from all over the world come to the U.S. for flight training.
The FAA did put out a statement. It reads this: the FAA continues to review extensively all available data and aggregate safety performance from operators and pilots of the Boeing 737 MAX. Thus far, our review shows no systemic performance issues.
All right, so if you had to fly on one of these planes today, would you jump on it?
I myself wouldn't fly on it.
Why?
You wouldn't?
No, I would not fly on the airplane because we just don't know. We have 2 planes that crashed, and there's still uncertainty out there. And, you know, takeoff is one of the most critical part of, you know, after liftoff. But we're going to find, once those black boxes come out, that's the key. I think we're going to have a much clearer picture when those black boxes are analyzed, which should happen in about a day or 2.
And it could be something as simple as a software fix, right?
Exactly. I don't see it if it is that. I mean, this could be a fix that's probably, you know, 2 or 3 months. I don't think it will have a substantial impact on the orders for Boeing.
Okay, this was Boeing's statement. They said safety is Boeing's #1 priority, and we have full confidence in the safety of the 737 MAX. So there you go. And when you're booking your ticket, it tells you what type of plane. So for those of you, many people book their tickets and they don't even know what type of plane they're getting on.
So you'll see 737, you'll see a dash and then another number, like a 7 series, a 6 series. So if you see the upper numbers, like the 8, you pretty much, and there might even be an M designation depending on what airline. But if you see like a 7 series, 6 series or below, you're pretty much safe.
And just out of an abundance of caution, you think American and Southwest will probably consider pulling those airplanes out of service?
Yeah, I mean, if I was the CEO of both those airlines, I think it would be great for public relations to say, hey, as a precaution, we're going to at least wait until those black boxes are analyzed and ground them until then. And then I think Boeing will either be cleared or they won't be cleared.
Why would they even take the risk? Why wouldn't they go ahead and ground them?
You know, it's still a business. There's still people. I mean, you have people traveling for medical reasons, for medical treatment. You know, I think there's more to it, and they trust the FAA. As a pilot, I know how diligent the FAA is. They do a very good job at what they do.
Well, Kyle, thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks, guys.
Trying to explain a very complicated situation.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. All right, straight ahead. ICE wanted this illegal immigrant detained 9 separate times, but you know what? It never happened. Now, he's charged with murder. How does this keep happening? We're going to tell you what we know.
Plus, Jay Leno has questions for late-night hosts now. Where's the civility?
Rarely does the President of the United States interrupt primetime television to warn us about a completely made-up thing.
President Trump has been able to remain tan despite the bad winter weather.
Rarely does the President of the United States interrupt primetime television to warn us about a completely made-up thing.
President Trump has been able to remain tan despite the bad winter weather. Thanks to, quote, good genes and not, as I had assumed, the heat.
Negotiating Trump just couldn't get Kim to make a deal. So between Kim Jong-un and Nancy Pelosi, we found Trump's biggest weakness: pantsuits.
With House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she said in the interview, when it comes to the president, he's just not worth it. Okay, that's clearly reverse psychology. Nah, I am worth it, Nancy.
And what you're not witnessing, what you're witnessing and hearing in a montage is not something you wouldn't have heard last night on all 3 major late night shows.
Every late night show.
Yeah, every late night show. It's a series of not political jokes, anti-Trump jokes. And amongst the people that are upset by this, and I did one of my senior projects on the history of late night television, so I really, for some reason, in my limited scope and my lack of friends, I'm obsessed with late night TV. I've never seen anything like it. This is this is the Daily Show on steroids every night. Well, I got the Daily Show had an angle, and that was fine, and a lot of it was creative, especially Jon Stewart's era, and that was one point of view. It was anti-Bush, it was pro-Obama. Every show is anti-Trump, and I'm not the only one who have noticed that.
Yeah, Jay Leno was on another network talking about this and calling for civility. He said, everyone knows your politics. It's so one-sided. Listen.
Everything now is, if people don't like your politics, everyone has to know your politics. But when people see you as one-sided, it just makes it tough. Now it's all very serious. Everything is just so I just like see a bit of civility come back to it, you know. You know, the theory when we did the show was you just watch the news, we'll make fun of the news and get your mind off the news. Mm-hmm. Well, now people just want to be on the news all the time. Right. So you just have one subject, so it's the same topic every night, which makes it very hard. I mean, all the comics, Jimmy and Colbert and everybody else, it's tough when that's the only topic out there.
Right, and here's the thing. When you take a side on television, you alienate half the country. So if you are working for a network that is in the business of making money, your business model is the best we can do is only half the country. You go back 30 years ago, before Jay Leno, you had Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson was a guy who would come on every night, and the whole country would turn on because he would be talking about things in the news. And he would poke fun at Republicans and Democrats, but it was something you could watch with your family. It didn't really offend you to the point. It was just hilarious. And at the end of the monologue, you'd go to bed and you'd tune in the next day because he never really crossed the political line.
Well, if you're a Democrat, you probably love these late night shows, but for some people that I know in South Carolina, I was just having this conversation with them, they missed the Johnny Carsons of the world, the ones that were really funny and didn't dive into politics. And if they did, they were making fun of both sides. Exactly. But didn't they see ratings go up, Brian, when they started bashing the president?
Here's the deal. Jimmy Fallon was winning. His ratings went up after Leno left and Conan was a disaster. His go up. And then when Donald Trump is elected, Stephen Colbert takes over by being the one-stop shopping anti-Trump channel. So they're getting the wrong message. If you think that they want to broaden their audience and grow their audience by being more balanced, it's wrong. Stephen Colbert would not be number one if he didn't spend his entire monologue finding creative ways to bash the president. And they are more concerned with making sure this president isn't normalized through comedy and through news than they are about getting ratings. They would sacrifice that to take this guy down.
Well, it would be interesting if there were a late night host who would actually take shots at both sides. What do you think about this? Email us, friends@foxnews.com. Also, we are on Facebook on this Wednesday morning.
And just to add one other thing, Jimmy Fallon is still being skewered because he normalized President Trump when he was candidate Trump. Remember he said, touch my hair, and he had fun with it? He had to apologize for acting like a normal human being.
All right, so what do you think? Let us know. In the meantime, time for some news.
Okay, Jillian has it for us. Hey, Jillian.
I think I have a solution. Brian, you could host a late night show because you have time for that.
I do. I have 4 hours of sleep anyway. Why am I sleeping?
You don't need that.
And I'll go right from that stage to this.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. I think we solved that. Good talk, guys. Let's get you caught up on your news, starting with this story. An illegal immigrant ICE tried to detain 9 times is facing murder charges. Police in California say the El Salvador national stalked Bambi Larson before stabbing her to death. Authorities say he had known gang ties and faced previous drug and burglary charges. ICE now calling for lawmakers in the sanctuary city to take action, saying, quote, how many more people have to be killed or injured? California Governor Gavin Newsom is expected to sign an executive order today to stop death penalty executions. The Democratic lawmaker citing his moral conflict with capital punishment. The order will halt all executions for the state's 737 inmates currently on death row. This defies voters who in 2016 backed a measure to speed up executions. A heroic business owner stops an attempted kidnapping. Look at the surveillance video that's showing a woman taking a 6-year-old boy from his Florida art gallery. He said something didn't feel right, so he followed them.
I could not live with myself if things had gone differently, so there was no hesitation.
The woman was later arrested and charged with kidnapping. A man races past firefighters, risking his own life to save his family dog from his burning home in California. Watch this.
All right.
Oh, After fighting through the flames and heavy smoke, the man emerges minutes later with his dog, Cabana. Both suffered minor injuries, but they are expected to be okay. I feel like I hope I would do the same thing.
I'm so glad that turned out okay.
No kidding. All right. Thank you very much. Now, off to the Weather Center. Janice Dean joins us. And Janice, you were telling us yesterday about a big storm, and there it is behind you.
Yeah, 70 million people will be potentially affected by this storm system across the Plain States, bringing blizzard conditions, potential tornadoes, and flash flooding. And this storm is going to rapidly strengthen within the next several hours. Possibly one of the strongest storms Kansas has ever expected. So this is a big deal. The snow behind this, we could get a foot or more of snow. Blizzard conditions also for millions of folks across the northern and central Rockies. Ahead of this, we could see flash flooding. So that's going to be a big deal. Here are your winter weather advisories, the flood warnings here, the blizzard conditions here with hurricane force winds blowing the snow around. So this is going to be a big deal. The severe weather threat across the Mississippi and Tennessee River Valley is something we're also going to watch this afternoon. Large hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes. Big deal, guys. We'll watch this throughout the day today. Steve Ainsley Bryan.
I got to tell my family out in Kansas.
Yes, sir.
Biggest
You got it.
Oh, my goodness. All right, JD, thank you very much. Okay.
All right, meanwhile, 20 minutes before the top of the hour, you got a big show ahead. According to my rundown, Stuart Varney is scheduled to show up. Then Dr. Oz separately. Jason Chaffetz, former chairman of Oversight, will be here live. And Tammy Bruce on Fox and Friends this morning. I kid you not.
And Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin both charged in that massive college scam, paying bribes to allegedly get their kids into school. Lawrence Jones says this is embarrassing for parents everywhere, and he joins us now.
Good morning, Lawrence. How are you?
Good morning. Welcome back. Some quick headlines now. Ohio gets the green light to cut off funding for Planned Parenthood. A federal appeals court upholding an Ohio law barring state funding for health care providers that offer abortions. Planned Parenthood stands to lose $1.5 million from the state health department. And Amazon removes 2 books from its online marketplace that promote autism cures and vaccination misinformation. The books claim children can be cured by ingesting and bathing in potentially toxic bleach, along with taking medicine meant to treat arsenic and lead poisoning. Ainsley.
All right. Thank you, Jillian. Television actresses Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin are among the dozens facing charges in what prosecutors are calling the largest college cheating scam ever.
Those charged are accused of paying bribes to get their kids into fancy colleges, including Yale, Stanford, and the University of Southern California, USC.
Yeah, let's bring in Fox News contributor Lawrence Jones. He's also editor-in-chief of campusreform.org. I was floored by this. And obviously, the blue chips and all these stories is about elite athletes getting paid to go to schools. What about non-athletes being given admission to schools to play in sports they've never even played?
That's exactly right. The reason why they took these sports is because no one pays attention to these sports, and so they were able to commit fraud. Look, this is not a jab at the rich or anything like this, but when you have fraudulent behavior like this that is training the next generation, that everything should just be given to them, that's a problem. And I think this is the problem with our culture at large. I work with young people every day at Campus Reform. They work hard, and they know if they were ever to submit something that was plagiarized, they would be gone just like that, just like that. But this new generation, where the rich are out here just teaching our kids that handouts should just be given to them, I think that's a problem.
But, there are a lot of parents who would do anything in the world to help their kids get ahead, whether it's trying to get into a good preschool or a high school or a college. But then again, this is just a whole new element where nobody had any idea that it was possible to essentially buy a really high SAT score.
Look, I was telling you guys off air that when I got my first participation trophy as a child playing basketball, my dad was so upset that he threw it across the parking lot. That's the type of household that
I don't want you to bring home a participation trophy. I want you to bring home the winner.
That's exactly right, but it starts right there. And we have a generation that is being coddled by their parents. They're going into college, and they believe that everything should be given to them. Just imagine what's going to happen to these kids when they go into workforce.
I know, that's the problem, because think about their parents. Their parents are famous actresses. They had to work so hard to get where they were. A lot of rejection, I'm sure. And look what they're teaching their kids.
And that's why I say rip all the kids out of school. Rip them all out. They don't deserve it. They got to go. so all
and
these people
took the
said
places of people that really
exactly. There are a lot of people that worked hard for that, and the notion that these kids had no clue about this. Look at this one girl that was on the YouTube channel saying, you know, I really don't want to go to college. I just want to go to the parties and to the college game days. This is what we're dealing with right here. Rip them all out.
So listen to the Boston FBI agent. It read like a story. It was one of these political. It wasn't one of these legal briefs. Listen.
We believe everyone charged here today had a role in fostering a culture of corruption and greed that created an uneven playing field for students trying to get into these schools the right way through hard work, good grades, and community service.
Do you think it's just this 50, Lawrence? I think this is going to get bigger and bigger, especially because they stumbled onto
this. That's exactly, and there's a lot of parents sitting at home probably watching this show right now. Scared, especially if they're Hollywood people. They're probably not squirming. They're probably watching CNN or some other network because this is the stuff that they believe. And these are people that always say, we want diversity. We want the minorities to be involved. We want people that are poor and less fortunate to have the opportunity to go to these colleges. And now look what they're doing. Oh, let's just give millions and then pay for our kids to get into the schools.
And I even thought about, too, is it right that if I'm rich and if I'm a CEO of a major financial firm and I say, I'll build you a new science building for my kid to get in? Which I don't think is right either.
It is not merit-based. We don't need affirmative action. Look, everybody can get into school. We are at a place in this country that if you have the right grades, that you have the right means. I understand there are people in less fortunate communities because that's where I came from, and I still got in because there's an opportunity in this country to do that. And I think we should be setting an example for these kids right now. That's why we need to pull them all out, and all the parents need to go to jail. Every last single one of them. And if you built the building and that was a reason why you got into school, that may not be against the law, but we need to review that as well.
I agree.
All right. Thanks, Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, guys.
The View fueling a conspiracy theory about First Lady Melania Trump and a body double.
I wasn't going to go along with this, but that one in that picture doesn't look like her. It's a different shaped face.
This morning, the First Lady's team is firing back.
Plus, a race gap in air pollution. That's the claim of a new study. David Webb says it's full of hot air. He ain't, and he's next. Coming up shortly. Hey, David.
All right, you got a new study claiming there's a significant race gap in the effects of air pollution.
The report argues that white Americans are largely at fault for the problem, saying pollution is, quote, disproportionately caused by consumption of goods and services, mainly by the non-Hispanic white majority, but disproportionately inhaled by black and Hispanic minorities.
Joining us now to react is Fox News contributor and host of Reality Check with David Webb on Fox Nation, David Webb. Hey, David, what's your reaction to this?
Well, should we apologize first as white Americans?
Well, I guess you should apologize because apparently I'm getting different pollution right here on this side of the couch.
Explain what they're talking about.
It's gobbledygook. Go to the bottom of this USA Today story and you see that it's a peer-reviewed group. A lot of times these studies are done by people with agendas, these enviro-terrorists, these eco-terrorists. They want to sell you a narrative, so they peer-review it and say it's a study. They don't apply the scientific method. But let's be realistic about this. Yes, are there areas localized where there are air effects different than just pollution widely because of concentration of factories or concentration in an urban environment? That's air quality, and that's an issue worth discussing. But when you talk about what they're trying to sell you, you'd have to apply the entire mass of the planet. If you go to Africa where they burn more wood, more fibrous fuels, their pollution is worse because they're burning something that releases into the air. Central and South America, very similar.
David, is this the first time you've heard of pollution being essentially carved up into racial demographics?
Can you explain Africa to me? Because last time I checked, it's not a majority Caucasian country, but they have a pollution problem. Can you explain Asia, China for that matter, or parts of India? This is garbage. But instead of opening a discussion about what we do in urban environments, in other communities, in rural communities, to make sure air quality is better. Farm country, Ainsley, right? Combines, lots of dust, whatever. So what do? They resolve the issue. They don't go and write a peer-reviewed paper.
Here's what Jason Hill said, co-author of the study. Even though minorities are contributing less to overall problem of air pollution, they are affected by it more. Is it fair that I create more pollution and somebody else is disproportionately affected by it? That's the question they want to solve.
Yeah, guilt, stupidity, lack of logic and scientific method. But the problem is they never get us to the real discussions about what to do about these communities. This is a problem with
Well,
this
what's the
peer
answer
review.
there?
The answer is to really do what we've done in this country. We've used technology. We've made factories cleaner. We've made communities cleaner. We've made cars cleaner. Our technology has advanced over the decades. Our communities are better. Now let's go help other countries, other parts of the world, because last time I checked, air doesn't stop at a national border.
We'll watch you every day on Fox Nation. Is that okay?
You got it. Reality check.
All right.
Bring it.
Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Thanks, David. Meanwhile, 4 minutes before the top of the hour, Elizabeth Warren says she's taking on big tech. But how does she explain taking tens of thousands of donations from big tech?
Stuart Varney on that. Plus, Dr. Oz, Jason Chaffetz, and Tammy Bruce are all here live.
Big show. Thank you.